I built a deck that wins by casting X spells for 0. Hi, I'm Michael Solani, and yes, you heard that right. I'm winning card games with the magic equivalent of leaving a Bible verse on the receipt instead of a tip. Here's an X spell. An X in the casting cost means you can pay any amount of extra mana you want as you cast it. Pick literally any number. 1, 2, 10, your phone number, your social, your credit card number, expiration date, those wacky 3 digits on the back, and every X spell scales proportionally to the amount of mana you pay. Cards like Rock Hydra, Volcanic Eruption, Guardian Angel. Nobody in the world knows what these do, but if you did somehow, you'd quickly realize that more X equals more better. But I've gone 30 years of my life without having X, and I'm not about to start now. This is how they brew it. Meet Zaxara, the Exemplary. Zaxara is a 2/3 Hydra with Death Touch, who can tap to add 2 mana of any one color. Those abilities suck compared to this next one, though. Whenever you cast an X spell, you create a 0/0 Hydra creature token, and then put X +1/+1 counters on it. Cast Torment of Hailfire for 30? Fuck you. But assuming your opponent survived to that somehow, you'll get to make a 0/0 Hydra and then put 30 +1/+1 counters on it. Of course, if you were to cast Torment of Hailfire for 0, you'd still get to make a 0/0 Hydra. It's just that you'd then put 0 +1/+1 counters on it, which means it immediately dies thanks to a sudden critical lack of ass. You can see where I'm going with this, right? As long as you control Zaxara, every X spell you cast for 0 comes with its own built-in death trigger. No sack outlet required. Grab a Zulaport Cutthroat, grab a Stone Coil Serpent, throw them in the blender, and you've drained every opponent for 2 without expending any resources. Yes, X spells cost next to nothing, if not nothing, because the game designers expected you to behave like a rational functioning member of society, including paying your taxes. And like a rational functioning member of society, you might think, why go to all the trouble of defrauding the government? Can't I just create and sacrifice tokens like a normal human being? Well, Billy, I'll tell you why. But first, let me introduce the rest of the no-cost 9. Each of these creatures have base power and toughness 0/0. They also have X in their mana cost, and only X in their mana cost. That X affects how many +1/+1 counters they're supposed to enter with, so if you were to define X as 0, you'd get to cast them by spending nothing at all. They'd enter as 0/0s and die instantly. It's the most fucked up 0-base 9-themed killing game since fucking Virtue's Last Reward, like 3 of you will get that. The no-cost 9 are the heart and soul of this deck. Like all of us, they live briefly shining for a moment, only to die, and they'll take Zaxara's corresponding 0/0 Hydra token to hell with them. In other words, each of these cards are basically 2 free death triggers, and they're the primary spells we'll be casting for 0. Now as a side note, they're not the only spells worth casting for 0. Some cards, believe it or not, actually work regardless of how X-rated they are, and stapling a free death trigger onto them is no small matter. Tyvar's Stand is still a decent protection spell that turns a creature hexproof and indestructible, Repulsive Mutation can still counter a spell, and Lost in the Maze still gives tapped creatures hexproof, which is quite the blowout if you pay for it in response to removal by tapping Zaxara. Gaze of Kranit may seem useless when cast for 0, but even that still destroys practically every token in the game. And let me tell you one last secret. You can actually still pay mana into X.
I don't believe you.
Maybe you want Pest Infestation to blow up some artifacts or enchantments, or maybe you want Death Denied to return creature cards to your hand. Maybe you want a Hydroid Krasis to draw cards. If you don't need them, toss them for Zaxara's Death Trigger, but when you do, all of these spells are genuinely useful. Now that we know who's dying, let's get to the why. It's an Aristocrats deck, plain and simple. We care about permanents that trigger whenever creatures die. This is actually the main reason we want to throw away real 0/0s instead of simply sacrificing tokens. Some of the most powerful Aristocrats abilities in the game only work when non-token creatures bite the dust, and the no-cost 9 definitely qualify. Take drawing cards, for example. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, Fecundity, and Erebos, Bleak-Hearted draw you cards when any creatures die, sure, but Grim Haruspex and Midnight Reaper are much pickier. Ditto Spinner of Souls, who is like a frankly bonkers card in this deck. It basically either always finds you a broken engine, or another of the no-cost 9, which you can of course throw away for 0 in an effort to find a broken engine. Speaking of broken engines, here's my dad's car. And here's 3 creatures that make mana off when your stuff dies. Pawn of Ulamog and Sifter of Skulls both create an Eldrazi that can be sacrificed for mana whenever any of your non-token creatures take a trip to the farm-up state, but Pitiless Plunderer makes you a treasure on any creature's death, including the aforementioned Eldrazi spawns and scions. Your opponents do not want to see all three of these on the field together. And of course, we can't forget our win condition, the state-mandated package of cards that drain your opponents whenever something dies. Oh hey, look at that, the Meat Hook Massacre is itself an X-Spell, neat. They may not look like much, but when your deck is chock full of cardboard that's basically just 2 free death triggers, these rapidly shock your opponents to death. And they stack with one another. So the game plan is pretty simple. Get the Aristocrats payoffs on the board, get Zaxara on the board, and shotgun X's and O's like your tic-tac-toe on methamphetamine. But this is how they brew it, and if you've read literally any of the articles this series is based on, you just know I've got crazy stuff up my sleeve. For example, you might notice I haven't mentioned this deck's ramp package yet. Think we're going to get to 4 mana with Rampant Growth? Guess again, nerd. Rampant Growth is trash. What are you going to do when you draw a turn 8 and you really needed a kill spell?
This card is useless.
I demand more from my cards, and you should too. Zaxara Tribuilder fixes Rampant Growth by adding a death trigger to the mix, keeping it relevant even if you draw it late. Birds of Paradise is cool, sure, but Twitching Doll can be sacrificed for tons of token fodder that you can put to good use in combat as chump blockers. Why play an Explore when Insidious Fungus dies and doubles as an artifact enchantment removal? Even the rocks are synergistic. Astral Cornucopia can be cast at 0 for yet another death trigger, and Elementalist's Palette will get huge over the course of the game. So huge that you can actually realistically pivot into a strategy that actually pays its debts, which is kind of insane to me. The last mana rock we run isn't even an artifact at all. It's Mana Bloom, an enchantment that effectively lets you store mana for later turns. Cast it for 1 on turn 2 to Rampant Zaxara, and then revel in the fact that it returns itself to your hand on your upkeep for no reason, if it ever runs out of charge counters, including if it conveniently never had any in the first place. That makes it a once per turn repeatable death trigger for just green, but if you prefer a once per turn repeatable death trigger for just black, then maybe Barad-dûr is more your speed. With it, you can spend black XX to amass Orcs X, so just amass Orcs 0 to start another funeral party. Once you've got all those death triggers, why not cash them in? Liliana Standard Bearer, Body Count, and even terrible starter deck removal Deadly Embrace are drawing out at least 2 cards if you play them right after one of the no-cost 9. And in the case of Liliana Standard Bearer specifically, you can even copy it with an Altered Ego, for 0 of course, to reuse her Enters trigger a second time. The amount of cards you connive when you activate Spymaster's Vault also scales to the amount of coffins you filled that turn, and this might be even better than outright drawing because we want our graveyard nice and stocked. Yes, that's the other main reason we're tossing real cards instead of sacrificing tokens. Cards go to the graveyard when they die, and the graveyard is the 3rd most desirable place to be in Sultai decks next to Hot Topic and the Principal's Office. You've already seen Funeral Room as I flashed it as I talked about pingers, but the other side of the card, Awakening Hall, returns all creature cards in your graveyard to the battlefield when it's opened, causing the no-cost 9 to die all over again. Phyrexian Reclamation, Find Finality, and Death Denied bring them back to your hand so you can recast them. And Forever Young sets up the top of your deck like a Gatling gun when paired alongside a draw engine like Grim Haruspex. You know what gun's even more Gatling than Forever Young though? Mortuary. This enchantment automatically relocates any freshly buried corpses of yours from your graveyard back to the top of your deck. So if your engine's set up to draw you a card whenever a creature of yours dies, you can stack the trigger so the card that you draw is the creature that just died. That's infinite death triggers with our free spells, of course, but if you want infinite mana, you'll need to pair it with one of the Mana Boys or something that can untap Zaxara as part of the loop. Intruder Alarm and Thornbite Staff are both busted, since casting one of the no-cost 9 guarantees that 2 creatures enter and 2 creatures die. That's 4 mana per spell, and last I checked, 4 is greater than 0. And as long as we're talking about the number 0, that's also the mana value of each of the no-cost 9. Ever read Paradise Lost? No, not the epic poem, I actually mean this card. It lets you regrow any number of cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sum on 2 6-sided dice you roll, but even if you roll Snake Eyes, that still guarantees you recur every free spell, and land incidentally, in your graveyard. Command the Dreadhorde works on a similar principle. It reanimates any number of creatures you choose, but it punishes you by forcing you to pay life equal to the total mana value of those cards. What a nightmare.
Oh my god, what a fucking nightmare!
But don't worry, I've saved the best for last. Zoophyte, Osteoharmonist, taps to reanimate a creature for free. The only downside is that it comes back with no abilities. That would be an immediate non-starter if not for the fact that we don't care, since we're just tapping him to get another death trigger by bringing back one of our 0/0s. Combine him with Intruder Alarm or Thornbite Staff for more shenanigans, and best of all, those deaths are non-token creature deaths, so you get the full range of Aristocrat's abilities. Now 6 gives all non-land permanents in your graveyard Retrace on your turn, which, given one's in the yard already, effectively turns every single land in your deck into another copy of the no-cost 9. This thing just ends games if you pair it with a draw engine and a pinger. It's very easy to find lands, and having each of them do another 2 death triggers is ridiculous. Finally, we have Charade, Shizo's Caretaker. This card tracks creatures with power 1 or less that died, and returns them to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Last I checked, 1 is greater than 0, so if you cast a 0/0 into it, it'll come back at the beginning of the next end step, only to die, meaning it'll come back at the beginning of the next end step. Only to die, meaning, yeah, you get the idea. Zaxara's X Spells for 0 is a fun, recursive deck that puts a unique spin on the Aristocrat strategy. When you reveal this commander, everyone's gonna think that you're just playing big Hydras. It's that moment when the shoe drops and everyone realizes that you're actually casting X Spells for 0 that's to die for. Seriously, just look at that time I submitted this deck to Maldhound on a stream.
Do I like a Hydra deck?
Come on, give it a shot. I think you'll really enjoy it, and best of all, it's under $100. If you like seeing this deck and want to play it yourself, the full deck list is in the description. If you want more like it, then comment below, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Though this is the first one I've done, I've actually been writing How They Brew It as an article series for over 5 years, and I can't wait to show you what I've got in store. You just gotta let me know that this is the sort of thing you want. You can read all of the articles this series is based on right now at my website, gamesfreaksa.info. And while you're there, you can also join my Discord, where you can chat with other janketeers, submit new deck ideas, and more. Check out the links in the description for all that, and until next time.